Welcome to the first KatChat of the semester, Adjusting to College. Like I mentioned, I was hoping to have a bigger discussion here, but we don't have a large crowd. So first thing I want to do is introduce myself. My name is Teresa D. Pratt. I'm an intern over at Counseling Services. I'm working on a PhD in counseling psychology, and I come here from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. So I'm also new here on campus and have done some adjusting. This is my colleague, Dr. Cliff Rohn. So to give you an overview of what we're going to be discussing here today, we've broke it down into 3 sections. So first, stressors, or those situations and experiences that are new and different now that you're a college student. Secondly, ways to cope with those stressors that come with adjusting to college. And then finally, we're going to talk about values and what role that individuals' values play in dealing with the adjustment process of attending college. I was hoping that KatChat would be as interactive as possible because I think that makes things a little bit more interesting rather than just standing up here lecturing, reading off of a PowerPoint. I plan to ask you to share bits of your experience so far and what adjusting looks like to you, partially so people didn't feel alone, but that's not working out today, and partially so that maybe people help each other with ideas, but we can do that as well. So first of all, maybe we can start naming some of the stressors that come along with adjusting to college. So what kind of things have you seen that either you or your friends commonly cause anxiety or stress about adjusting?
Well, this past weekend, project in architecture that everybody so that was stressful.
Big project in a class.
And not being able to go home.
Mm-hmm.
But that didn't happen.
Okay, so missing family, not being able to go home as often as you normally would, having to travel distances to get to people that you're familiar with. Those are important. How about some stressors that, and maybe you can relate to this, first-time college students, first-generation college students can deal with?
My dad went.
So he wasn't super helpful in navigating the experience for you, but yeah, all new things, not necessarily someone to talk to about all the red tape and all the procedures that you need to go through to make everything happen for yourself, right? What are some other stressors related to academics? You mentioned a project. What are some other things? I was thinking maybe like balancing classwork with other activities. Yeah.
Classes themselves, like,
And so that can be a tough decision sometimes. But right, balancing all the different requirements for every class that you have. And often students are carrying 3, 4, or 5 classes, and they have to figure out what's a priority this week compared to what's going to be due next week. So all of those things. Maybe not understanding the material as well as you'd like. Those are some things that accompany some academic stress. Wanting to have some kind of social life, right? So trying to fit all of those things in, and like you said, going home for the weekends and stuff. How about some stressors that might be specific to some out-of-state or out-of-the-area students? You're not exactly in the area, you're from a ways out.
it's like 10 times worse for them. Oh, Kansas is nothing like, California.
Right, yeah.
That's where their family. Oh, it's Friday night. I can go out and do this. Oh, this is a new town in the middle of nowhere. So.
Right, really an unfamiliar area, unfamiliar campus, not knowing anyone, being alone, all of those things contribute to a really stressful first time at college. Hi, welcome. Picking a major, is that something that you've come across that's difficult for you or your friends?
Yeah, I mean, I know
Wow, okay.
So it's prior to I was thinking about radiological.
Wow, so that's quite a difference.
It's very different. My parents kind of scratched
But it's what you felt drawn to. Yeah, and that's a common problem for lots of college students is trying to figure out what major to go with because they think, what can I pick that I can do for the rest of my life? That's not an easy decision, right? What kind of stressors have you had being at college?
Basically, I should have been here. But I could call it.
You're right. Do you not know a lot of people in the area or?
Right.
Right, not having good friends around anymore to talk to, that sort of thing. Absolutely.
Admits
Yeah, right. So maybe trying to meet people in classes and stuff like that, yeah.
and it's hard to like
Ah, okay. And maybe we can talk a little about that with our next section on how to cope with some of these stressors. Um, So right, and there are other stressors that are specific to specific groups of students that come, international students, for example, maybe problems with the language, problems with acceptance around the campus community. How about maybe veterans or active duty military members? What kind of issues do you think they have with adjusting to college?
very strict schedule. Classes in the morning and then one in the middle of the afternoon.
Right.
I'm sure that's pretty difficult for them.
Absolutely, that having complete structure, and that can be true of people coming right from high school too, or even older adults coming to school after having worked for a long time in the same career, come to college and all of a sudden you're kind of on your own to be responsible for all of your time management and how to balance all of these activities and get all of your work done and projects done that aren't due for weeks or months on end. So, yeah, great. I think that we've covered many of the things that cause college student stress, maybe other things like finances. Sometimes you have to hold a job down while you're also in school, while you're also trying to manage your coursework and deal with being away from your family. So do either of you work?
No. So that's
Yeah, the Career Center is really good for helping with that as well. Okay, so when we talk about all of these different things that may contribute to adjusting to college, what kinds of things have you done to cope with some of the stress that you've felt so far up until now? What kinds of things do you do to kind of get by?
Saturday night after like
Ah, so just going out and relaxing, having a good time, kind of letting everything go for a little bit. Yeah, that's good. That's one good way to cope. How about you?
I most call for having fun.
Ah,
I like always reminded myself
just hang in there, it's going to get better.
for making friends.
You're here to get your degree, not necessarily to make friends. That's it. So that's like a self-talk technique, being able to talk yourself with some rational thinking, like, I'm here for school. Eat some food. Eating a lot. People, sometimes students cope by eating, that's true. Or exercising is also a really good way to cope. Sometimes even just getting out for a walk, walking around campus a little bit to get yourself out of your own head for a while. Concentrate on the trees or the air or the temperature outside.
That makes me want to ask other questions at work.
Oh, it is. So that may not work for you.
My own, so
Ah, okay. So you think that because you're walking by yourself, it might actually be contributing to stress if you would go for a
I
walk.
see more like couple.
Couples and groups of people together. So to you, that means, hey, what am I doing here alone? Why aren't I walking with someone?
Sometimes I feel like others are also like thinking
Okay.
themselves.
Yeah, and one thing I can suggest is to keep looking around, because I bet there are a lot of people walking around by themselves. I'm usually one of them who's walking around campus by myself. So just take note of that. Not everybody is with somebody else. Let's see, what about for time management? What kinds of techniques can you do for either studying or managing your time better?
I am terrible with time management, and I am probably the worst procrastinator.
So that definitely is contributing to your stress.
Yeah, I'd say so. But everything always gets done somehow. I don't know how.
So you might be one of those people that work better under pressure or something like that?
Maybe. I don't know. It sure doesn't feel that way.
Yeah, but that stress, that really feeling stressful may not be good for you. You might want to like schedule in some time on your calendar. Oh, that project isn't due for 2 months, but maybe I can work on it for an hour this weekend. Something like that. How about you? How do you cope with your academics and the stress they bring?
I am calling myself like last minute guy. I know when doing this stuff, like coming up that then I see how long I have for it, and then say okay later.
All right, I'll do that later. Right.
And then nothing comes actually to solve the problem unless it is like
The next day, it's due.
okay now.
I
Let's
see.
get serious.
When you have to get serious, you're able to get serious.
Right, yeah. Well, sometimes it causes me to
Yeah.
stay longer at night.
Yeah. So you end up kind of paying for waiting a little bit, right?
And then at those minutes, I'm like, "Damn, God."
I should have done this before, right? Exactly. That's pretty common on this campus, I'm pretty sure. One tip I can give you, and you have an assignment due coming up, and I learned this being a graduate student myself, is that I sometimes open up a file, like a Windows document or something, and just get my name on it and the title, and just get the file started, because then when you have a chance to go back and even go back for 15 or 20 minutes, then you technically have already started, so it's not quite as hard to keep on going. Another thing you can do is maybe set aside, give yourself some slack. Like some students come and they think, oh, I'm going to work on this project and I'm going to sit here and work on it for 3 hours at a time. And nobody wants to do that. If you're telling yourself that, then that's something you're probably going to dread doing, rather than maybe giving yourself a little leeway and saying, you know what, on Saturday or this evening, I'm going to work on this project for 20 minutes, and then I can shut it down. And if you really allow yourself to sit in front of that computer, type what you can, whatever comes to mind, or even be looking at a book for those 20 minutes. If you really don't want to go any further, let yourself shut that book, change subjects, go for a walk, go do something different, so that next time you won't dread it so much, because you have this plan in mind that you're going to allow yourself to stop when it gets too crazy. So, just an idea. How about like feeling lonely or disconnected on campus? What kinds of things can you do to cope with that?
That is getting together.
Definitely activities around, yeah.
Like actually.
And that's the key. There's a lot going on campus, but if you don't actually look at the events page or investigate the bulletin boards on campus, then you might think that nothing's going on, when actually pretty much every day, even on the weekends, there's things going on campus that you can go to and be involved. One thing that I hear sometimes from clients is that they don't want to do things by themselves. And so there's this little technique that I use with them. And so if they're sitting there in one of our sessions and they think they want to go see this movie, but no one wants to go with them, but it's a movie they really wanted to see, I'll say, why don't you go ahead and go see that movie by yourself? And inevitably they'll say, that's not going to be any fun. People are going to be looking at me and judging me for being alone, kind of like what you were alluding to. But when they agree to go and they come back to the next session, And I'll actually, during that first session, I'll say, what percentage of satisfaction do you think you're going to get out of going to this movie by yourself? And it's always like 10%, maybe 25%, something very low usually. But then when we come back the next session and say they did go do that by themselves, I've never had a client come back and say anything but 75%, 90%. It's often up 90, 100%. So definitely take that chance and go do something by yourself. You might meet somebody there. You might find something interesting out on campus or in the world that you didn't think that you'd see before. So even if you don't have someone to go with, definitely check things out on your own. There's lots of social activities. There's groups offered where you can meet people and that sort of thing. Yeah, exactly. Lots of lectures or seminars are offered by different schools that are on campus. So if it's architecture you're interested in or archaeology, there's probably going to be a seminar or some kind of a group. And so when you go to something like that, you know that the people who are also there are interested in at least one thing that you're also interested in. And so usually it's easier to meet people if you're interested in some of the same things. That was a really good point. Thank you. So let's see, any other ways that you cope with stress from college? Things that aren't class related.
Yes.
Yeah.
Netflix helps too.
Yeah, I've actually had a couple of people say that to me, that the way they de-stress is to kick on the Netflix for a while, as long as that doesn't turn into a procrastination technique. So, yeah, absolutely. Let's see. So those are great strategies. But sometimes we're so stressed out in the moment that we can't even decide what to do next, or we're so stressed out in the moment that we start to feel it physically. And so I'm just wondering, do you guys know what stress feels like when you're taking it on physically? What kind of things start to happen with your body?
I can tell when my anxiety is
Yeah.
and I'll start having. What do I do? So I go and I find it. I just sit there and if you fail this project, probably only going to be 10%.
I love that. Good self-talk.
Even if you drop the ball, you can talk to your professor. Guidelines like, oh, this should probably be the timeline you're running. Rationalizing it. Really not that big a deal, but you're making a big deal out of it.
Yeah. And self-talk is actually a skill that I happen to teach a lot of people, because people tend to talk to themselves really negatively sometimes, and over time that really can contribute to anxiety and depression and things like that. So if you can get into the habit of talking to yourself in a nice manner, in a way that's reasonable and logical, that's going to really be able to help you out. What are some other things that we do physically when we feel stress coming on in the moment? You're right, we feel tense, we might get a headache, a stomach ache. Anything else? Maybe sweaty palms. I know for myself, the tight muscles, my shoulders go up when I'm nervous, so that's my first sign that I'm feeling stressed out. Feeling shaky, maybe feeling your heart race. That shallow breathing is really important. Like you said, you kind of start to breathe. And that's because you're taking breath in only up in your chest. So it's almost like hyperventilating, like and so that, just the act of doing that will start to make you feel more and more stressed, and then you can end up with a panic attack or something. So what can we do in those moments? One thing that I recommend to my clients and family and friends and anyone who will listen is that it's really an important technique to know how to do deep breathing. And I know that you have probably heard this before and over maybe your life, and it might sound cliche, like, oh yeah, what are a few deep breaths going to do for me in the moment? But what I have found is that people who don't feel like it works, either they're not doing it right, or they haven't done it enough times so that it works for them. And so I'd like to just lead you in a little deep breath exercise so that you can see how it really is supposed to work. So first, I'd like you to just kind of sit comfortably in your chair. You can adjust yourself just as you would before you go to sleep. Just feel comfortable in your chair. You might want to put your hands in your lap, your feet on the floor. I like to close my eyes when I take a couple of deep breaths. You can close your eyes if you feel comfortable doing so. And then first, it's important to note where in your body that you are feeling tense. So like for me, I mentioned my shoulders, but maybe your hands are tight or sweaty. Maybe you're holding your stomach really tightly. That's another common symptom. And so just take recognition at where those tight spots are. And so next, I want you to breathe in through your nose, keeping your mouth shut on the inhale. So you're going in through your nose as though you're savoring the smell of a beautiful flower, really slowly and deeply through your nose. And then you're going to exhale through your mouth, also slowly. And that's what we're going to do as though we're blowing out a birthday candle. Because some people when they breathe out just go, and that's not going to be good enough. It really has to be a good. And as you do that, I want you to think about, on the exhale, those muscles, being able to let go of those muscles wherever it's tight on your body. So let's just do that a couple of times. So in through your nose, out through your mouth, and relax. Okay, ready? Pay attention to the air as it flows into your nose. Pay attention to the air as you blow it out your mouth. And keep monitoring your body for tenseness anywhere. And as you do that a couple of times, just really try to focus on your breathing. You might have thoughts pop into your head about things that you need to get done later or something that's going wrong in your personal relationships. And you can recognize those thoughts, but then just try to let those go and try to refocus on your breath. Very good. And you know that you're breathing properly if when you're breathing in, you can feel your stomach coming out, because then you know you're breathing it in far enough and it's not going to be up here. Great. Thanks for trying that along with me. And how was that for people? Did it make you feel relaxed at all a little bit? And I'd encourage you to keep trying that. Like if you don't necessarily feel relaxed right now, you're also in a room and I'm watching you breathe. So when you take that out of here, really try to do that in a situation where you're feeling tense. It can be in a classroom. That's the cool thing about the deep breathing technique, is that you can do it just about anywhere. You can do it in a grocery line if you're getting really impatient about people taking forever to get out of the grocery line, or the cashier is chit-chatting with everybody. You can do it if you have anxiety over a test. If you're in a conversation that's making you feel uncomfortable, you can step away for a second. You can even do it under your breath if someone is staring at you. Really, I've been able to do that too. So just a good technique to take with you in case of a lot of anxiety in the moment. So I promised that I'd talk about one more topic, and that is values. So once you're able to calm yourself down emotionally, calm yourself down a little bit, your body, then you still might have a decision to make, or the next move you're going to make, or some kind of a decision to make. So how can you make that decision that's most effective for you personally? And I like to think that all the decisions that we make are best for us if we work from a place of our values. And what are values? Can you tell me what you think of when you think of values? So moral ideas of what you think is right or wrong, basically. Anything else? Same thing? Yeah, and I define values as kind of our own perspective about what we believe is important to us, and everybody's values are probably a little bit different. Yes, we have a lot of overlapping values as a society, but individually it's up to us as adults to figure out what we believe and what we value as important to us in our lives. What our priorities are, what we believe to be acceptable and unacceptable with regard to behavior and attitudes. And values are really a base that we operate in the world with. So it's really important to know what your values are. So where do you think that your idea of values, where did that come from in your life? Where'd you get those? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And those are all the ones that I thought of as well, either caretakers or parents or other important people in our lives. Education, schooling tries to teach us what is right and wrong. And then our spiritual background, everyone's might be different as to what they value in life and what they think is important. So the important thing is that we can use our values when we're trying to make decisions and adjust to college. And so if you find yourself in a place where you don't know what to do next, it's really going to be to your best interest to think about, go back to what's important to you. You know, you're here at school, learning, getting this degree is the most important thing to you, rather than other things that might seem important in the moment, but really if you step away from it a little bit, might not be as important to you as you thought. So adjustment is really about figuring out how you're going to navigate all of these new changes and situations, and I like to think that we can use our values as a guide to do so. So, is there any other questions about adjusting to college or any things you'd like to have some help with adjusting? No? Well, I thank you for coming today. I really appreciate it. There's a KatChat every week. Usually there is more people, so maybe the rain or something had something to do with that. It's also the first one of the semester, so people aren't really aware that they're going on. I'm going to hand out Right, that might be one thing you could think coming away from here, but I am here to tell you that that is not true. Everyone has a little bit of a hard time adjusting to college or any kind of new situation in life, right? So this first sheet, on the front of it, it says let your values be your guide, and it has places to put in the values that you learned from your family, the ones that you've gotten since entering college, values you want to live by in the future. So if you do have a hard decision to make, maybe you can turn to this paper and remember what those core values are so that you have an easier time and less stressful time of making decisions. Sure. And then on the back are some resources. There are some resources for assistance with academics. So there's a learning inventory that you can take online. The Academic Assistance Center is always helpful in multiple ways. Study skills, time management. The Career Center is really a great resource for students, not only helping you pick a major, find a career, but they'll look over resumes, there's mock interviews available, that sort of thing. So an important thing to remember. Also, the KatChats are all listed on the back there so you can see what's coming up. The next one's going to be at risk on campus, so recognizing the signs of distress and connecting students to help. And then I have a sheet on 101 ways to cope with stress. So if you've tried everything yourself that we've talked about and none of those things seem to be working for you and you find yourself in a bad place where breathing's not working, checking in with your values isn't working, talking to people isn't working, maybe you can pull this out and do a couple of these things on this list just to change the pace of your day, change your energy wherever you're at that moment. Okay? So thank you so much for coming to